What's your probable cause? So you ripped the door open and there was odor before or after you ripped the door open? Because you ran up on me with your gun drawn and ripped the door open. Is what you did, yes or no? Yes. You didn't start your body cam after you ripped your door open. I watched you. You started it right when I handed you my license. Right, yes or no? Yes or no? So what are we here for now? What was your probable cause? Because my lip flaps were too short. But there was no odor until after you ripped my door open or before? I didn't roll this window down. Not at all. I rolled that side down. See how it's down? This window's not up. He ran over here, ripped this door open, and had his gun drawn on me. That's what happened. Right. So where's your probable cause at? Before or after you ripped the door open? What part? So it was coming from. So with the window up, there was odor of coming out. Absolutely. Is that what you're going with? Absolutely. Sounds good. It's gonna be an interesting one for sure. I don't have any. But I got sawdust in there, and evidently that's. There's no probable cause because you came up and just ripped my door open. Oh, nice. Now he's trying to get a tent ticket. You're gonna try and get something today. Well, I'm not answering any questions. Get my license.
The basis for this traffic stop was alleged to be lead flaps being too short. Now, is that a thing? If a vehicle has more than 4 tires on their rear axle or something like that, then there's this mud flap requirement, and they have to be like a certain number of inches from the ground. And here you could tell that this police officer had used that before as BS, pretextual justification to harass people, and that's what he's doing here. And then the officer, once he performed this stop, then he used their other thing that police officers use across the country, and that is, well, I smell. And it's almost always a lie. I guarantee you. And how absurd is it that still in 2024 the police officers are allowed to use that BS lie that they smell? Because what does that do? Just a regular traffic stop for, let's just say, mud flaps. That only entitles a police officer to hold you there for a reasonable amount of time to do the normal things that an officer would do for a equipment-related traffic stop. So get the ID and the insurance and registration and run a check on that and write a ticket, blah, 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 blah. It does not allow them to come just automatically and open up the door to get them out of the vehicle, to open gun point, to handcuff, to search them, to frisk them, all that sort of stuff. Third, we see this officer, I mean, he uses everything in their usual bag of tricks. So he also says that you rolled on me, or you did something, you didn't stop quickly enough. A lot of times that's BS as well. Here he utilizes that to open the door of the car, pull some car to frisk you. Because normally, again, just because of mud flaps being too short, some people don't get to pull you out of the car and frisk you. Frisking somebody, police officers are allowed.
Attention, please. Today on Monday, April 7th. Good day. This is Robert with the Biden-Harris Medical Support Line. I'm reaching out with a critical message that affects you and those around you.
Didn't realize they were the real DEI hires and were going to lose their job. I feel bad for Columbia and Emory and Johns Hopkins losing $3, $4, and $800 million when HBCUs ain't never had that kind of
A call to action for the Federal Reserve from the president this morning. He says oil prices are down, interest rates are down. The slow-moving Fed should cut rates. Food prices are down. There's no inflation in a long time abused. USA is bringing in billions of dollars a week from the abusing countries on tariffs that are already in place. A special government employee now picking on the president's trade advisor, Peter Navarro. Elon Musk writes about Navarro. A PhD in econ from Harvard is a bad thing, not a good thing. Results in the ego/brains being bigger than one problem. Navarro says no hard feelings.
There's no real fears. I look, Elon, he's got X, he's got a big microphone. We don't mind saying whatever he wants.
And officials here are not just spending the day refreshing the stock app on their phones. They're going about their business as usual. They're going to have Benjamin Netanyahu here later on to talk about the war in Gaza and also to talk about tariffs. And they are also going to host the World Series champion Dodgers. Sandra?
Not like me last night at 6 o'clock Eastern when StockX futures open. There's a big sell-off, and then it came back, and was watching it every single minute of it. All right, so big day at the White House. Peter, thank you. Dana.
I don't even know how to do that. Kelly Conway is our guest. We're glad to have her here. Senator Adam Schiff has been criticizing. This is not surprising necessarily from the Democrats. Let's just hear from him, do this quickly, and then we got to talk about Kamala Harris.
I don't agree with any part of that, and unfortunately, he's wrecking our economy. I think people have seen their retirement savings on fire, and there he is out on the golf course. That may end up being the most enduring image of the Trump presidency. That is the president out on a golf cart while people's retirement is in flames.
I said it's a little rich coming from them when they ignored inflation for 4 years.
Prices were stubbornly high for those 4 years. Housing up 30%, rent and mortgage, gas and groceries, utilities, all types of insurances, health insurance, life insurance, auto insurance, you name it. Prices went up and morale went down. It's part of how Biden lost to Trump. And yet we didn't have tariffs. So folks know that there are many different nexuses. I think that the people, particularly those who voted for Trump, which is not a base, it's a base plus plus. The man won the popular vote, he won all 7 swing states. The people are going to give Donald Trump more space and grace than the markets and Wall Street. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said something very important yesterday. He said that the top 10% in this country hold 88% of all the equities in the stock market. The next 40% hold 12%, and the bottom 50% hold debt. They're the ones with the auto loans. They're the ones, you see these burnout factories, these facilities shut down. They're the ones like the people in my family who sat in union halls for weeks and years and decades waiting to be called on to get work. And now, it's a national security issue. I saw this in the White House during COVID, but we don't make things here. We don't have a supply chain. We don't make chips. It becomes a national security, national sovereignty issue. The last thing I'll say about tariffs is I think that raising revenue, yes. Protecting American industries, American security, sovereignty, American yourself, yes. But the third component Donald Trump has introduced into the equation is to compel or incentivize transformative changes in behavior from other companies and countries. Every week, the White House is putting out company after company that's coming to them with big American investment announcements. So ladies, these are public documents. Anybody can see them, and I hope more people will access them. These are significant investments in the U.S. I think this is the week that you'll see some little bit capitulation, a lot of negotiation. Different companies and countries coming to the White House and saying, I want to raise my hand first, like the old prisoner's dilemma. And we already heard Hassett and Lutnick and certainly Bessent saying that all of this is coming to be. So I think the stock market goes dollar by dollar, moment by moment. The people themselves want someone, an American president is going to say, you know what, when we get past the interest that we pay and our mandatory spending, that's 100% of our revenue. Both parties seem addicted to spending in a way that somebody has to step in and say no more. I think that President Trump, he's saying to the country, short-term pain for long-term gain. He's doing it early in his second term because he knows that you need a little bit of that space to see what happens. There's a Daily Mail piece now showing that market's down 10%. And yet Trump's approval is holding steady, if not up. He's leading so far. And I think that he's doing this for the people, not the top 5 and 10%. And there's always going to be more people. look, we saw on election night, the old Obama coalition from 2012 has become Trump country 2024. The movement of union households, of non-college educated households, of folks who did not stay at home. They're wearing their masks and judging everybody else to stand in a circle during COVID, but instead had to go
If
every
you
single
don't
day
have a
with their
fucking
kids
why,
at
you're
home
a
and
fucking
kitchen out of
asshole.
classroom screen
Because
time
the
school
truth is
time.
the truth.
They
If
went
you
and
don't
they
know the
drove
reason
those
why
trucks.
you
They
out
went and
there
they picked up
and you
everybody's
can't
trash. They
explain,
went and they
it's because
prepared
you
food.
don't know the
And
fucking
there's
reason
a
why.
little bit of a class division here, and I think Donald Trump is always going to be on the side of the workers.
Well, as it was just on our air a short time ago, said the phones are ringing over the weekend. Countries are coming to the negotiating table, so we'll see where that goes. We'll see where markets are about 23 minutes from now when the U.S. stock market does open. Meanwhile, speaking of the last administration, Kamala Harris seems to be telling her supporters, "Told you so" on Donald Trump. Listen.
These are the things that we are listening to. Each day is where it's
That's pretty much. Would you agree that if Americans have more money
and
and
we
more
understand
chips
it
and stuff like that,
creates a great sense of fear.
it's for the middle class, low income class areas, stuff like that,
But
right?
there are many things that
We know that in 2018
we
we
knew
passed those tax
was
cuts that helped the middle class.
many things not just so
This says her former running mate, Walls, seems to be countering that message. Listen.
Look, when I criticize, I'm criticizing myself. I always stop part of the tickets. I think what the vice president's saying is that was pretty self-evident that he was going to do that. I do think the challenge for Democrats, and this is, I think, a structural problem that's going to take a lot more thinking. Why, with all of that out there, did they not think we were any better than that? And they did, and I'm very concerned.
You are a hypocrite then.
What does this tell you about the self-reflection?
Because I give you information that there is no fucking God, and people don't want to know that. They want to believe that there is, not knowing that believe is a lie all by itself. The word is a twist.
These things can be cyclical, but so far, they have not done
Twist.
anything to grab back.
Twist, twist.
Who went for Donald Trump in this last election. And even
As we can look at Ira's data, we can see that the middle class benefited the most from Trump's tax cuts in 2018. Yeah, well, what we're doing is just we're informing people on campus, right? People have a lot of narratives, and those narratives could be not true.
You should know how to answer these questions.
I would tell you something. Donald Trump understands that they have completely surrendered.
What is a specific example of one of those things?
Work for a living and so I will say that since you asked my opinion, I'm not in this stock market. But I think it's a big play for 2028. Kamala Harris, the more we see of her, the better. I don't hear a lot of serious people talk about her as presidential.
You make yourself look like an asshole when you can't explain your fucking why.
They're looking to other people. But look at even these protests.
Why is it so
it wasn't reflective
to
of,
just,
I think, the
hey, you know, that's
geographic,
actually
demographic, ideological SWAT, racial SWAT that we would
tell them
want
where to
as a
get the
growing
information
party.
from and everything.
It's great to see you. Thank you for wonderful to see you in person on a Monday
Oh, that's
morning.
not true.
Pretty blue.
Hey,
Thank
sure,
you.
you
Peter Kelly.
ain't even looked up nothing.
All right, another elite school on notice. The Trump administration
I
planning
think,
to freeze
again,
more
it
than
goes back to
$500
what I was telling y'all about in
million
previous videos.
in contracts and grants to Brown University, adding to the list of
wasn't
Ivy League
raised,
colleges to strip the federal funding over their response to allegations
taught how to
of
apologize
anti-Semitism
properly.
on campus.
We didn't.
Nate Floyd's
We
last on
associated
next. He's in New
failure
York City
with,
with
like,
more. Hi, Nate.
Hey, Sandra, good morning. So Brown University is set to lose
Just
more than
sad
$500
or
million
like emotions like sad and
funding.
fear and
It
stuff
was
like
the
that.
White
But really,
House
man,
called
it's
an
an opportunity for you to learn.
anti-Semitism on campus. So
And never forget our earth Don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. That's something that's stuck with me. Somebody says my daughter working part-time while attending school full-time. Saw her refund go from 9 in 2017 to 1,800 in 2018. If she works, that policy continues. It should be very easy for her to throw out some facts. I suspect our facts aren't actually all, yeah, they aren't facts at all. They actually just about.
Think Trump is making.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. A lot of this is just now, Chris Cuomo just admitted that the media can't destroy Trump because they destroyed themselves in the process.
People on the left that I would say they like to do is judge you by your worst moment. Yes, and that's why MAGA is real, because they can only do it to their own. Donald Trump is truly the Teflon guy. The media cannot take it down because his people reject the basis of the criticism. There's an old expression.
It's not that we reject the basis, we reject literal lies.
Meanwhile, detained Columbia University
It's not
student
lie. I reject the idea that he did this.
over the weekend, and in
Did he
it,
do that?
he blamed Columbia
Look
for
at the facts of the
enabling his
matter.
detention and helping the Trump administration target international students
You know
for
that
their Palestinian
if
support.
you have to decide whether or not to care about what someone says about you, the way you start is, well, who said it? What do I think of them? And people have made that assessment about the media, and they have said, you know what, I don't care what you say about it, because I think that you allow a lot worse, and I think you're kind of what you say he is.
Thank you.
And that's why they're not going to get heck set out, but they would be if it were the Biden administration. They can cancel all day on the left. They cannot take out members of MAGA. Trump would have to go bad on the guy. It would probably have to be a federal case to make him even think about it. And there is power in that for him.
One of my pet peeves about the left.
An alleged MS-13 gang member. The latest Swiss in charge in their showdown.
100% disagree with some of the stuff they said, but I don't 100% agree with some, you know, how he chose to.
And did you catch this?
I would say he's spot on in
Busy
terms
start
of
to the week
the
on Capitol
overall
Hill.
point.
House Republicans are moving
About
forward with two major bills.
The
one
left
on curbing the
spent so much
federal
time trying to take
judiciary,
Donald
the
Trump
other
down
on
that they
protecting
literally
election
destroyed themselves in the
integrity.
process. And
For a
honestly,
preview, we go to
be
Chad
more
Perot. He's
reputable.
live on the Hill. Good morning, Chad.
Y'all just did it to yourself. One moment after another, twerking at this rally. Jesus ain't king at that rally. But y'all gonna play well. Just play with God. Thomas Paine has added this paid propagandist pointing the finger at his fellow propagandists. Hilarious. He's correct, but he is talking about himself as well. Yeah. And the vision is possible by how the tables have turned, man. They got good. Oh, okay. Now, just to prove Chris Cuomo's point, real quick.
You know what's funny? I don't fucking care what you think about Trump. I don't. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter you call him a 34-time felon, or an insurrectionist, or a bad businessman, or misogynistic, or racist. He cheated on his wife. None of these things matter. It didn't resonate. But the problem is, you're still talking about it, and you hate this man so much because you believed all the gullible bullshit that they told you, that you keep doubling down because you can't imagine that you were wrong, that now all of a sudden you no longer stand for things that you used to stand for. You bought into Russian collusion. He didn't pay his taxes. Quid pro quo. Very fine people, bloodbath. The list goes on and on and on and on. Now all of a sudden, securing our borders and getting rid of violent offenders is a bad thing. No longer good for Americans or American people. You now think that getting rid of waste and corruption and mismanagement, misspending of money in the government, which you have screamed for decades, is no longer a good thing because Trump's doing it using Doge, which was something started under Obama, just renamed. You no longer think it's a good thing to end the war between Russia and Ukraine or Israel and Palestine. You think the war should go on and peace is a bad thing because Donald Trump is the one bringing it to you. You are no longer objective because you're so filled with hate. You've adopted
I guess just like you like your food raw.
You think violence, damage, and destruction of property.
I guess just like you like your food raw.
You think calling for the unalive
You gonna make sure your food is clean before you eat your food raw.
You think going after and attacking people,
I ain't mad at you, homeboy.
cutting them out of your lives is somehow socially acceptable today? You guys have
The
lost
best
your
thing to
fucking
do
mind.
is stay healthy with the kids in you.
Because I don't.
My God.
Rumble, young
Amen to
man,
that.
rumble.
Amen to that. You know, he hit it right on the nail of what Chris Cuomo was saying. Like, how can we care about what you think? I mean, on school occasions. So, yeah, that was all the same year. It's not fun. Gotta get this together. But, yeah, we see y'all. We watch how y'all act in these different arenas. And lack of common sense. Why would we, for a second, take what you guys say and hold it to any regard?
Well, the governor has filed an emergency appeal to the Fourth Circuit, so we're waiting to see what they say. But in the interim, Sandra,
Make it make sense, though. That's all we say. But anytime you ask them to make it make sense. Yeah.
So in 2019,
I told y'all, Trump,
a judge issued
to do something that they don't like to do, which is report the truth.
More breaking news now. The March jobs report just released moments ago, telling us that the U.S. economy added a stronger than expected 228,000 jobs last month, and as the unemployment rate changed only slightly, now at 4.2%. Matt Egan, back with us. Okay, what does this mean?
Well, this is good news because it shows that the job market is in good shape in March. I think the bad news is there are growing fears that this was March, and that this unfortunately may not last because of the trade war. Let me run you through the numbers. 228,000 jobs added in March. Now, this was stronger than expected. This really blew away forecasts for around 130,000. Also, this represents an acceleration from January and from February, both of which were revised lower. The unemployment rate, it did tick higher to 4.2%. That was expected. When we dig into some of the sectors here, the one that everyone's paying a lot of attention to right now is the federal government. This report shows that federal government employment did fall by 4,000 in March. That follows a 10,000 drop in February.
You see what's going on with those?
But we're likely just starting to see this drips and drabs because a lot of people who were laid off, they're not yet collecting unemployment. So those numbers are likely to go even higher. Also, just wanted to point out the cost of living. Wages were up again by a solid amount. It cooled a little bit. The wages were up by 3.8% year over year. That is well ahead of the most recent rate of inflation, which you can see was just below 3%. So that means paychecks are being priced. But listen, the bottom line here is, yes, the job market looked pretty solid in March. But now the question is, can it make it through this test of the trade war, right? I mean, this job market has proved to be so resilient.
The trade war is helping right now. You got so many people, so many different countries trying to call and negotiate. You see this, though? They just hate the fact that this man is out here. Oh, what he said he was going to do. Over 228,000 jobs. Man, I can believe that federal, any federal staff should step from American like somebody wrote down here, government jobs and spending should be reported separately, in my opinion. Americans have a right to know how their federal government is baloney. Yeah, man, for sure. But these tariffs, are they helping? Are they hurting? We'll dive into that in just a second. But Stephen A. Smith has a message for the Democrats.
I'm going to say something that is popular, but you know something the Democrats think. Y'all are very, very fond of talking about how Donald Trump lies.
And including Trump's
some of the things that have made people uncomfortable about Donald Trump got to be
first term.
Didn't he say tariff was he was going to live by? Did he not say that he was going to close those damn borders?
Yeah, the issuing of these injunctions.
I believe he said
the truth is the truth. It is what it is. You're a part of all it is in being here.
And things are going to get very, very
Everything is a part of you.
For lawless individuals out there.
True.
Did he not provide
The creator within the creation. You're never alone.
And the human rights of individuals that were considered lawless.
Your past and your future is your now.
The culture that we were living in.
It is what it is. All it is. Raw creativity. We all creating a reality all together.
And athletes not being allowed to transition from male to female.
Feel the love, be the love.
In women's sports. Did he not say anything?
The Supreme Court said no, but they can't block that.
Yes, he did. It's surprising to me. No, I'm sorry. I'm not surprised by how surprised the left is acting about it. Like, it's documented. I mean, but these are the same people who say that they didn't say something and it's literally a 4K on camera. You got People, these Democrats been called
I'm going to
multiple
say
ways.
something.
Without listening to the rest, I bet the next word is huge. Like I said, he would still vote for them. So why should they listen?
You got all without proof that it's happening. If you're in the body, you become
Plan.
bullshit.
Because you gotta, I don't know. I
I know love is all that is.
The left is
Real
complaining
shit.
about this man playing golf.
Well, I mean, not at all. I mean, President play golf, Joe Biden play golf, Joe
They
said
Biden's been
said it
booked
was
for
true.
a
I
long
know it.
vacation. I
They
mean, no,
know
I mean,
it
this
is.
is a common
Know
role
that
game
Jeff,
played. I don't think it makes a difference to anybody.
you
I
ain't
do find it interesting in this conversation, though, about
and you're
Democrats
not
finding
gonna
their,
allow
free
nobody
market
to interfere with that.
bona fides all of a sudden. I mean, these are
But
the
it's gonna
same
be
parties who've been
happening with
arguing
whoever
that
we have
corporations
elected.
need to pay higher taxes. I mean, effectively, a tariff is just a tax on corporate activity. That's what it is. And
Oh,
Democrats
we've
for
been
years
talking
argued for higher
stupid.
corporate tax rates, and now they're arguing against effectively a tax on corporate activity. I think if I were Donald Trump, I might next week say, you know what? I'll meet you on this. Let's slash the corporate tax rate in half, and it'll mitigate your concerns about the tariffs. I bet you wouldn't find one Democrat who would agree to it, even though it would be an amazing idea. I mean,
Yeah, man, I appreciate Scott for how he exposes the left hypocrisy, because this is something that we know that they've advocated for. We have Bernie Sanders documented. We have was it AOC? Yeah, we got Bernie Sanders. Nancy Pelosi. You got Obama. You got all of these prominent figures on the left in favor of what Donald Trump is doing in terms of tariffs and all that. And yeah, man, I don't get how we would want to sit here and allow other countries to rip us off. And on top of that, Donald Trump is looking out for the better interests of the American workers. I mean, because it employs more jobs. You know what I mean? Of course, sure. Things might get a little more expensive. I get it. Locally, just for a little while. But at the same time, bro, you know how much more money you're putting into the country? You're putting back into America? Listen, the Democrats are enraged by the tariffs precisely because they understand Trump's goals. They know that they long ago lost the guts to fight for the American working class. Now, they fight for Wall Street, which thinks it should control the agenda because for so long it has.
The reason the Democrats are so flummoxed is not because they don't understand why President Trump put these tariffs on. It's because they 100% understand why he put the tariffs on. They just cannot imagine having this kind of courage and a heart for the American working class in the way that the president does. There's one other group that's feeling as angry as the Democrats are, and it's Wall Street. Because Wall Street, of course, is now a Democrat.
Yes.
The rage that you see on Wall Street, what they are trying to do here is they are shorting the president's agenda, because Wall Street thinks, after 60 years of being utterly catered to, that they control this country and that they should control the president and all of our elected officials. And of course, they think that because that has been the case for so long. The reason the Democrats...
Oh, wow, that sucks. They cut it off right there. Yeah, that has been the case for so long. That's part of the reason why I think that they assume that these temper tantrums are okay. Somebody says the Republican Party under Trump is the Democratic Party from decades ago plus success. I mean, the Democrat Party, maybe at a certain point, but, we know how the Democrat Party was derived, and, what they was fighting against, and why the Republican Party, I'm just saying. Let's move forward. Right here. Remember I just told y'all? You got Trump, that is, got these other countries like, hey, let's go ahead and negotiate.
I got a report from the USTR last night that more than 50 countries have reached out to the president to begin a negotiation. But they're doing that because they understand that they bear a lot of the tariff. And so I don't think that you're going to see a big effect on the consumer in the U.S. because I do think that the reason why we have a persistent long-run trade deficit is these people have very inelastic supply. They've been dumping goods into the country in order to create jobs, say, in China. I got a report.
Man, say what you want about Donald Trump. You have to give him credit for his fight for the American people. Seriously. You know, I'm not going to sit here and act like I cared about politics prior to maybe 2.5 years ago, but seriously, this guy is the only one that I've seen in real time be able to take the concerns of the American people and make, or at least make the efforts tangible. Whereas I hear a lot on the Democrat side, this is always more, we're going to do. Now, don't get it twisted now. I'm going to keep it real. I ain't so satisfied with paying Bondi right now. It's a whole lot of, I mean, we got some Tesla protesters, but we need, Y'all go check on somebody today. You can quite literally be saving their life. And I'm going to say,
The truth makes sense. The truth change. And it's time to make a change. And make sense out of living life.